just can't let you know.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Ice Blade.
Welcome ladies and gentlemen, it's Iceblade here with another YouTube video. Today we're looking at controllers in Steam. So I bought this generic USB controller and here Ryo is keeping it up and ready for usage. But this is just one that kind of looks like a PlayStation 2 controller. Now I had some issues getting that to work in Street Fighter V, which I got it for, and Street Fighter V just didn't want to pick it up, and I had huge issues and started working on Steam to get the controller to work there and got it to recognize it in Steam, but it still didn't want to work in Street Fighter V. I got it to work in Rocket League through Epic Launcher and there wasn't an issue, but as soon as it was a Steam game, I had issues. Now, my son uses Rocket League through Steam and he has issues getting his Rocket League to work perfectly. Mine on Epic Launcher, no issues. So after tweaking and fighting with this thing, I got it to work in Steam and now my Street Fighter V works, Mortal Kombat 11 works. Everything just works perfect. So how I got it to work, I'm just going to take you through the process. Now, the most important thing is to start with your Windows or first, and I would suggest you go to Control Panel, double click on that, and then look for devices and printers. Go in there. Now, if your controller is connected to your PC, it should show up here. If it's not, depending on which controller you have, you need to enable the way it connects to your PC. So you do get Bluetooth controllers, you do get wireless controllers, and then you get the one that I have with the USB. So now if I plug in the USB, it should pick up something was plugged into this computer. Have the nice Windows 10 sound there. So after plugging it in, as you can see, it shows up as a USB gamepad, which it is. So after you have linked it with Windows, I suggest going to right click on that and then go to game controller settings. Here it will actually show you what it is. It's a USB gamepad and a virtual HID device. Now highlight the USB or whichever controller you're using and go to properties. So here you can test that all the buttons are registered on Windows while pressing them. And if it doesn't, you go to the settings tab. So here you can press on calibrate and then you go through a calibration wizard where you can basically calibrate the buttons to what you actually want it to be. Now, when in Steam, I would suggest unplugging the controller, because that was one of the issues I had. When I left it in, Steam would pick it up, but I would have huge issues in the game. So this is the way I got it to work, and that was by unplugging the controller now. Boom, no more controller. Then I would say you go to your Steam, you just open up your Steam. So after opening up your Steam, you go to the icon that has those arrows stretched out and it says big picture mode. So you click on that. And then we greet it with big picture mode. And in the big picture mode, you would go to the gear at the top, you click on that, and then you look for controller settings to the left. So if you open up controller settings, this is the screen you're supposed to be greeted with. There is no controllers detected because you have not done this process yet. If you have done this process, your controller would be listed there even if you have unplugged it. So then you need to basically remove it. Now here you just select what controller you're using. So if you have official PlayStation controller, Xbox controller, Switch controller, or any generic gamepad like I'm having. So then you select that to basically give you support for this device. and then only do you plug it in. Okay, so now we have plugged it in and it picked up that it is a generic gamepad and generic gamepad. Now here you need to do some things. You need to calibrate or define your layout in the game. You can go to preferences and you can rename this anything you want. It doesn't make a difference. But if you have different controllers on your system or that you use on your system, renaming them makes sense. So I'm just going to leave it at a generic gamepad. Okay, so at the bottom you would be greeted by calibrate or define layout. Now calibrate I won't actually do unless you do have problems with your controller or the joysticks on this controller. I would basically advise you to go to define layout. Now here you can basically change all the buttons. So you just left click on the command that you want to change, and then it will on the right hand side open up what button you want to assign for that. Now if you have left clicked on primary action, it shows that my button 2 is primary action. You can basically press on any button on your controller and it will assign it for that purpose. Secondary action, it's button 3, so here you can assign it as you wish. I have already done this. After you have assigned the buttons, please remember to press save, otherwise you did that for nothing. So after you have finished setting up your layout and your controller, you go back and you go back again, and then you go to library. Now here it should show the games that you basically own. Okay, so I just shrinked myself so you could actually see this, but if you go to a game and you would hold your mouse cursor over it, it will actually show you that there's a game controller icon and it is marked. That means that this game can actually work with a game controller. Now if I go to Warframe, like you can see, there's no controller, it shows keyboard, so that's basically keyboard and mouse only. There is still some tips and tricks you could use to get this game to work with a controller, but it's not guaranteed. It means this developer said that it does not work with a game controller. So now if you have a game that does not work with a game controller and you want to force it to work with a game controller, which is not a good idea, but it is possible, you just click on the game itself and then you go to a manage game. Now if you click on manage game, you see that it will add controller options and controller configuration. So then when you're at this screen, you click on controller configuration. Now here's where the brilliant part comes in. You have browse configurations at the bottom. So the first option would be recommended. Now here it can say anything, but here is actually the official configuration for Warframe. It says it's recommended, and then you can click on this to actually load this configuration if you wanted to. You can then go through these options. If you have a friend that uses a control on this game, you can actually steal these configurations as well. You can go to community, and here in the community it will show votes. Like this one has 85 votes, and recently playtime with this configuration is huge. So people have been using this configuration a lot, and that's why it's at the top. You can see this one has the most votes, but it doesn't have that amount of playtime. So look at the playtime and also look at the votes for the configuration. Then click on it and apply it for yourself, or you can upvote it. There's also templates you can go through, and then also your other games. Now here you can also map out your own configuration. So if you want to map out your own controller, you just click on one of the buttons and it should open this screen. Now on this screen you just rename to what you want, and on the right hand side, right behind my picture now, you would see a controller and you would just click on the controller. Then you just map the button to what you wanted to do. So that is basically it. If you can go out there, so That is the way to basically use a controller with a game that's not meant to be used with a controller if you really wanted to. So you can go through all your games and just hover the mouse over it and you will see it is good for a controller. It is good for a controller. So if it's not showing a controller, I told you what to do to basically make it work with a controller. And so if you find a game that you want to play and it does work with a controller, easy. If it's not working with a controller, you can kind of tweak it. If it doesn't work, you need to remember that it was not meant to be played with a controller. But mostly if you use configs, the recommended one from the developer, great. And if you use some of the community that already is using it, better. So after doing all of this, you basically can now use your controller in Steam. You can leave it plugged in, it doesn't matter. It's already set up and ready to go. So enjoy gaming in Steam with your controller, guys. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. We need some friends on here so we can see what content we need to push. And if you find this helpful, please hit like. Thank you, guys. Enjoy gaming.